Book 2, Installment 2. At this point, we've already heard from um, a couple of the demons in hell. We've heard from Belial and Malak, and now we're about to hear from Mammon. Thus Belial, with words closed in reason's garb, counselled ignoble ease and peaceful sloth. Not peace after him thus Mammon spoke. Either to disenthrone the King of Heaven we war, if war be best, or to regain our own right lost. Him to unthrone, we then may hope, when everlasting fate shall yield difficult chance, and chaos judge the strife. The former, vain to hope, argues as vain the latter, for what place can be for us within heaven's bound, unless heaven's Lord Supreme we overpower? Suppose he should relent, and publish grace to all on promise made of new subjection. With what eyes could we stand in his presence, humble, and receive strict laws imposed to celebrate his throne? With warbled hymns into his godhead sing forced alleluias, while he lordly sits, our envied sovereign? And his altar breathes ambrosial odors and ambrosial flowers, our servile offerings. This must be our task in heaven, this our sole delight. How wearisome eternity so spent in worship paid to whom we hate. Let us not then pursue, by force impossible, by leave obtained unacceptable, though in heaven, our state of splendid vassalage, but rather seek our own good from ourselves, and from our own live to ourselves, though in this vast recess, free and to none accountable, preferring hard liberty before the easy yoke of servile pomp. Our greatness will appear then most conspicuous, when great things of small, useful of hurtful, prosperous of adverse, we can create, and in what peace soe'er thrive under evil, and work ease out of pain through labor and endurance. This deep world of darkness do we dread? How oft amidst thick clouds and dark doth heaven's all-ruling Sire choose to reside, his glory unobscured, and with the majesty of darkness round covers his throne, from whence deep thunders roar, mustering their rage, and heaven resembles hell. As he our darkness, cannot we his light imitate when we please? This desert soil wants not her hidden luster, gems and gold, nor want we skill or art from whence to raise magnificence. And what can heaven show more? Our torments also may in length of time become our elements. These piercing fires as soft as now severe, our tempers changed into their temper, which must needs remove the sensible of pain. All things invite to peace counsels in the settled state of order, how in safety best we may compose our present evils with regard of what we are, and where, dismissing quite all thoughts of war. Ye have what I advise. He scarce had finished, when such murmur filled the assembly, as when hollow rocks retain the sound of blustering winds, which all night long had roused the sea, now with hoarse cadence lull seafaring men, o'erwatched, whose bark by chance or penance anchors in a craggy bay after the tempest. Such applause was heard, as Mammon ended, and his sentence pleased, advising peace. For such another field they dreaded worse than hell. So much the fear of thunder and the sword of Michael wrought still within them, and no less desire to be found this nether empire which might rise by policy and long process of time in emulation opposite to heaven. Which, when Beelzebub perceived, than whom Satan except none higher sat, with grave aspect he rose, and in his rising seemed a pillar of state. Deep on his front engraven, deliberation sat, and public care, and princely counsel in his face yet shone, majestic though in ruin. Sage he stood, with Atlantean shoulders fit to bear the weight of mightiest monarchies. This is a little bit ironic because the name Atlas means one who does not suffer. So there's a little bit of a parody here too. His look drew audience and attention still as night on summer's noontide air, while thus he spake. So this is Beelzebub speaking. Thrones and imperial powers, offspring of heaven, ethereal virtues, or these titles now must we renounce, and changing style be called princes of hell. For so the popular vote inclines, here to continue and build up here a growing empire, doubtless, while we dream, and know not that the King of Heaven hath doomed this place, our dungeon, not our safe retreat, beyond his potent arm, to live exempt from heaven's high jurisdiction in new league, banned against his throne, but to remain in strictest bondage, though thus far removed, under the inevitable curve reserved, his captive multitude. For he, be sure, in height or depth, still first and last will reign sole king, and of his kingdom lose no part by our revolt, but over hell extend his empire, and with iron scepter rule us as with his golden those in heaven. What sit we then projecting peace and war? War hath determined us, and foiled with loss irreparable, terms of peace yet none vouchsafed or sought. For what peace will be given to us, enslaved, but custody severe, and strips and arbitrary punishment inflicted? And what peace can we return but to our power hostility and hate, untamed reluctance and revenge, though slow, yet ever plotting how the conqueror least may reap his conquest, and may least rejoice in doing what we most in suffering feel? Nor will occasion want, nor shall we need with dangerous expedition to invade heaven, whose high walls fear no assault or siege or ambush from the deep. But what if we find some easier enterprise? There is a place, if ancient and prophetic fame in heaven err not, another world, the happy seat of some new race called man, about this time to be created, like to us, though less in power and excellence, but favored more of him who now rules above. So was his will, pronounced among the gods, and by an oath that shook heaven's whole circumference confirmed. Thither let us bend all our thoughts, to learn what creatures there inhabit, of what mold or substance, how endued, and what their power, and where their weakness, how attempted best, by force or subtlety. Though heaven be shut, and heaven's high arbitrator sits secure in his own strength, this place may lie exposed, the utmost border of his kingdom left to their defense who hold it. Here, perhaps, some advantageous act may be achieved by sudden onset, either with hell-fire to waste his whole creation, or possess all as our own, and drive, as we were driven, the puny inhabitants. Or, if not drive, seduce them then to our party, that their God may prove their foe, and with repenting hand abolish his own works. This would surpass common revenge, and interrupt his joy in our confusion, and our joy upraise in his disturbance, when his darling sons, hurled headlong to partake with us, shall curse their frail originals and faded bliss. Faded too soon. Advise if this be worth attempting, or to sit in darkness here, hatching vain enterprises. Thus Beelzebub pleaded his devilish counsel, first devised by Satan, and in part proposed. For whence but from the author of all ill could spring so deep a malice to confound the race of mankind in one root, and earth with hell to mingle and involve, done all to spite the great Creator? But their spite still serves his glory to augment, The bold design pleased highly those infernal states, and joy sparkled in all their eyes. With full assent they vote, whereat his speech he thus renews. Continues to be Beelzebub. Well have ye judged, well ended long debate. See not of gods, and like to what ye are, great things resolved, from which the lowest deep will once more lift us up, in spite of fate, nearer our ancient seat, perhaps in view of those bright confines whence, with neighboring arms and opportune excursion, we may chance to re-enter heaven, or else in some mild zone dwell, not unvisited, of heaven's fair light secure, and at the brightening orient beam purge off this gloom. The soft, delicious air, to heal the scar of those corrosive fires, shall breathe her balm. But first, whom shall we send in search of this new world? Whom shall we find sufficient? Who shall tempt with wandering feet the dark, unbottomed, infinite abyss, and through the palpable obscure find out his uncouth way, or spread his airy flight upborne with indefatigable wings over the vast, abrupt, ere he arrive the happy isle? What strength, what art can then suffice? What envision bear him safe through the strict centuries and stations thick of angels watching round? Here he had need all circumspection, and we now no less choice in our suffrage, for on whom we send the weight of all, and our last hope relies.